Chiefs 27, Houston Texans 19. Welcome to the KHOU 11 News Studios. I'm Jason Bristol. As always, we're breaking down what happened after the Texans game, and in this game, it was tough. It was tough to watch for so many different ways. When you look at the stat sheet and you look at the scoring, Texans were right there, and the odds makers thought for the most part this was going to be a close game, and it was. We're looking for your one word. As always, we're looking for one word to describe what you saw today. The Texans, again, they were hanging in there. The injury to Tank Dell was just so difficult to watch. And certainly I think that had some kind of an effect on the Houston Texans in Kansas City and how this game evolved. But if you're on our KHOU 11 News Facebook page, please leave your comments. We'll be going about 20 minutes here. As you can hear, I don't have a great voice right now. I'm a little under the weather. But again, looking for your one word to describe what you saw from this game in Kansas City. You look at the stats, C.J. Stroud, 23 of 39, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, 28 of 41 for 260, 1 touchdown. He was sacked just once. Patrick Mahomes is just incredible. To play with his injury and do the things that Patrick Mahomes does, you really cannot. I mean, how can you be surprised by what this guy does? And he's done it consistently for so long. Joe Mixon, 14 carries, 57 yards. Averaged 4 yards a carry. Kareem Hunt led the Chiefs in rushing with 55 rushing yards on 11 carries. Tank Dell was the leading receiver for the Texans, 6 catches, 98 yards. And you look at what the Chiefs did, what they always do, spread the ball around. Xavier Worthy, first-round pick, 7 catches. Hollywood Brown had 5. Travis Kelce had 5. Tracy weighing in with her word. Yep, this is a good one. Heartbreaking. How about this one? I'm going to say costly. It was a costly game. When you look at the injuries, the offensive line, Shaq Mason, losing him early, and you're already shorthanded because there's no Juice Scruggs. Kendrick Green, I thought, did pretty well filling in. I thought Kendrick Green was pretty good. We have heartbreaking and costly. So give me your one word to describe what you saw today in Kansas City. But losing Tank Dell, who knows what the situation is with Shaq Mason moving forward. And it's not like you have 7 days to prepare. You've got to turn around now and play on Christmas Day. Oh, Paul says costly as well, so there's 2. Look at some of these team stats. Hopefully we'll get an update from Kansas City and D'Amico Ryans on the situation with Tank Dell, but it did not look good. Don't want to speculate, but my guess is he's done for the season. I think that's probably obvious. Tracy says too many injuries and mistakes. Yep. But injuries aside, that's what this Texans team has done a lot of this season. Mistakes, whether it's penalties or penalties at the wrong times. Texans were penalized 6 times for 45 yards. Not terrible. Texans with 311 yards of total offense. The Chiefs 375. Hector says, I am so sad. Yep. Barbara has her word. Depressing. Christina says, wow, really sad. Maybe that's the word. I'll put that on there. Make an executive decision. Sad. Kansas City held on to the ball for 34 minutes. The Texans had the ball for 26. Turnovers. Game like this, two turnovers for the Texans, 0 for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what you're going to see in the playoffs. We all know it, right? See if we have some other words here. Christina says rough. So we have heartbreaking, costly, depressing, sad, and rough. Got another heartbreaking. Thank you. Deshaun says frustrating. Yeah, I could see that one. This game was close. For most of the game, it was close. A couple of mistakes here and there. And I think we all know this is what happens in the playoffs as well. Yards per pass, 5.5 for the Texans, 6 for KC. Texans actually had 5 yards per carry total for the team. Red zone, here's another situation. Texans 1 of 3 in the red zone, 3 of 5 for the Chiefs. Karen says tearjerker. Tracy, penalties were very costly. We saw the team's whole demeanor change after the injury. Yep. Mentioned that when we first came on. When the Texans lost to, I think Fernando says, when the Texans lost to Detroit, I knew it. We are nowhere near where we need to be to actually be a true Super Bowl contender. Some might argue it happened sooner. But, yeah, this team, maybe they arrived a year early. Maybe that was the problem. Last year, not a problem, but that's why expectations were so sky high. But, you know, we saw this with the Astros in 2015, and then they took a step back in 2016. And then, obviously, we all know what happened in 2017. Nancy says a lot of lost opportunities. Yep, and that's the separator between the Texans and a team like the Chiefs. The Chiefs capitalize. Karen says the penalties were costly. The game was within reach, without a doubt, without a doubt. I was being super optimistic. Yeah, I think a lot of people were being super optimistic, but when you have this magical quarterback in C.J. Stroud, that's okay. We all were feeling that like that. I mean, here you have the quarterback that put together one of the greatest rookie seasons in the history of this sport. And then you add Stephon Diggs, and you add Joe Mixon. And the Texans draft an offensive lineman fairly early. KC is unwatchable because the refs favor them. Boring. Yeah. Kansas City does seem to have the calls always seem to go their way. That was Patty. I'm sorry, Patty saying that. Again, we're taking your one word. We have heartbreaking, costly, depressing, sad, rough, frustrating, and we have tearjerker on there. Third down, the Texans were actually very good on third down in this game. They were 7 of 13. I think if you showed that to D'Amico Ryans, Bobby Slowick, that, hey, you'd be 7 of 13 on third down heading into this game, I think they would have taken that number. Total plays, Chiefs by a long way. I mean, 70 total plays to 58. That's what happens when you're the Texans and you have a number of 3 and outs. Christina says it was really close, but knew they were not going to win. Nancy says need to maintain the momentum, capitalize in the red zone, diminish the penalties. Sounds familiar, right? We've been talking about this every single week. And now we're 16 weeks in, 15 games. Kansas City 8-0 at home. 14-1 overall. Patrick Mahomes. It was interesting to see, and we talked a lot about this on the news, and then even on Sports Extra a week ago, that the line was 2.5 in favor of the Texans to start because we weren't sure, or the odds makers weren't sure whether Patrick Mahomes would play. And then by the end of the week, it's like 4.5 favoring the Chiefs. Lisa says penalties hurt us, and they kept trying that screen pass play that it wasn't working. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up because, boy, that screen pass just kept not – they snuffed it out every single time. And I don't know if that's the scheme or the way it was slow developing. Here's a good word. Underwhelming, or underperformed. I'm sorry, underperformed. But I would argue this team has done that quite a bit this year, even at 9 wins. And maybe that's just the fact that expectations were so sky high. Will says the fact third down became automatic first down all first half. We didn't even see their punter until the second half. Those penalties were absolutely great. Fernando says underwhelming is better. Yeah, third down. It's interesting how well the Texans did, but the penalties. And again, it wasn't the 11 or 12 that we've seen in past games. It was 6 for 45, but sometimes it's the timing, as we all know. I have not seen Mina says, do we speak about the cheating refs already? No. I mean, we talked about how Kansas City gets the calls because that seems to be the Chiefs' way. What are we at time-wise, Lupita? Almost. Now, I guess the question is, with these injuries and the short week, what do we expect from the Texans against Baltimore on Wednesday? I mean, it is going to be tough to overcome. And the injury to Tank will still be fresh in everybody's mind. I mean, that's going to be the big talker for the next 48 hours or so. Lisa says after Tank went down, the momentum changed. Yep. I don't know if this Texans team could beat Kansas City. I think they were going to make it a game, and they did. They did. But to see CJ, and anyone who follows this team knows how close CJ and Tank are, but to see CJ's reaction on the broadcast. Will says CJ got destroyed with no calls, and Pat got brushed on his shoulder, and it's a 15-yard flag all day. Well, it's Patrick Mahomes. That happens. It's not the first time. I mean, this season there's been some times where the Chiefs have benefited from a call or a non-call, and you see the result. They're 14-1, 8-0 at home. Christina says CJ is an amazing player. He is an amazing player. Something is off, though, and we keep talking about it. Something's off with this offense. I think they were better today. Again, I was pleasantly surprised the way the offensive line performed, given being shorthanded coming in and then the injury to Shaq Mason. Mina says, let's not talk about that fumble. Let's see what else here. DeAndre Hopkins. Still got it. I mean, he's not the downfield threat, but those hands, sure thing. When you throw his direction, he's going to make the catch. That was an important pickup for the Chiefs. Eric Murray led the team with 10 tackles. That's typically not a good sign because obviously the other team's getting into your defensive backfield. Toa had 10 tackles as well. Murray had 8 solo. Christian Harris, man, he's back. Seven tackles, 5 solo. And what's also interesting about Kansas City, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, they've had offensive line issues as well. But, man, they still perform at a very consistent level. I think they said that they've played with 4 different left tackles this year. That's nuts. Mina says it's hard not to cheer D-Hop on, though. I would agree. For everything he did and some of the quarterbacks he played with and still was able to produce. Kalen Bullock had 5 tackles. Another guy, speaking of former Texans, Justin Reed. Charles Omenihu. Those are some of the guys who, as far as being accommodating with the media, they were always really good to deal with when they were here in Houston, especially under some really trying times at times. So Justin Reed was always very good to deal with, same with Charles Omenihu. Let me see if I've gotten any information from the Texans about Tank Dell. And thank you, everybody, for understanding. I'm a bit under the weather. I think everybody knows stuff's going around. I tried to give it the Heisman. I was not able to do that, and now I'm dealing with this throat thing here. A little sinusitis. Let's see here. My guess is Tank Dell, again, out for the season. Shaq Mason, we'll see. Dana Holgerson, his former coach at the University of Houston, posting a message on social media saying how much he loves Tank Dell. But what a rough start to his pro career. Missed last year, or at least half of it, if you will, with injury. And then the situation in the offseason, and now this. So I guess we'll have to wait now for Christmas Day to see how the Texans respond. It was the toughest stretch of games during the season. We knew that before the season. Right now you're 1-1. We'll see what the Texans can do against Baltimore. Short week. So, of these words, our one word: underperformed, heartbreaking, costly, depressing, sad, rough, frustrating, tearjerker. Lupita, what do you think? Heartbreaking? All right. That's what we'll go with. Today's word is heartbreaking. So, I thank all of you for joining us as always. I know there's another football game on. Your final score: Kansas City 27, Texans 19. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday with us, and we'll have complete coverage of the game tonight on KHOU 11 News at 10 and Sunday on Sports Extra. Have a great day, everybody.